Stop whatever you are doing, because what you are about to hear is not speculation, not propaganda, and not the kind of crisis analysis that gets walked back by morning briefings. Tonight, the state of Israel faces the most catastrophic single defensive failure in its 76-year history. Hezbollah has just executed a rocket barrage of such unprecedented scale, such devastating precision, and such complete operational success that every assumption underpinning Israeli security doctrine has been incinerated in the same fires now consuming Tel Aviv's skyline. The number that Lebanon's Islamic resistance launched across Israel's northern border in a coordinated 6-hour operation exceeds 1,500 rockets and guided missiles, a volume that represents not merely tactical harassment, but strategic assault designed to achieve what 4 Arab armies failed to accomplish in 1973. The Iron Dome air defense system, that technological marvel which Israeli officials have promoted as an impenetrable shield capable of protecting the homeland from any conventional rocket threat, has been systematically overwhelmed, saturated beyond its mathematical capacity to intercept, reduced from cutting-edge missile defense architecture to burning wreckage scattered across the Galilee hills. Tel Aviv burns tonight in ways this city has not burned since its founding, with fires raging through residential towers, commercial districts, and critical infrastructure nodes, while emergency services struggle to respond to simultaneous impact sites across the metropolitan area. The Israel Defense Forces, that military establishment which has projected an image of regional invincibility for decades, now confronts a crisis that exposes fundamental vulnerabilities in defensive posture, operational readiness, and strategic assumption. If this channel has been giving you the analysis that cuts through the noise of official narratives and mainstream defense commentary, now is the moment to make sure you never miss an update. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video with everyone in your network who is serious about understanding what is actually happening at the sharp edge of Middle Eastern power competition. Tonight's analysis takes you inside every dimension of this catastrophic failure, from the technical realities that allowed Hezbollah to achieve defensive saturation to the strategic implications that will reshape the entire regional balance of power. We examine the weapon systems that overwhelmed Israeli defenses, the operational planning that enabled such devastating tactical success, the consequences now facing Israeli political and military leadership, and the permanent alterations to Middle Eastern security architecture that this night has delivered. Hezbollah's rocket offensive did not emerge from operational improvisation or tactical opportunism, but represented the culmination of years of methodical capability development, strategic planning, and operational preparation, specifically designed to defeat Israeli air defense systems through mathematical inevitability. The 1,500 projectiles launched in coordinated salvos across 6 hours were not crude Katyusha rockets of the type that Hezbollah employed in previous conflicts, but represented a sophisticated arsenal combining multiple weapon system categories, optimized for different tactical purposes within an integrated operational schema. The barrage included extended-range artillery rockets capable of reaching deep into Israeli territory, guided precision missiles designed to strike specific high-value targets, and overwhelming volumes of unguided munitions intended purely to saturate defensive intercept capacity. This layered approach transformed the offensive from simple rocket harassment into genuine strategic assault capable of achieving effects previously considered impossible through conventional rocket artillery alone. The Fajr 5 extended-range rocket system formed the backbone of the sustained barrage, with these 333mm artillery rockets delivering 175-kilogram high-explosive warheads across ranges exceeding 75 kilometers from launch sites in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah has accumulated substantial stockpiles of these Iranian-supplied systems over the past decade, with Western intelligence estimates suggesting inventories exceeding 10,000 individual rockets distributed across hundreds of concealed launch positions throughout Lebanese territory. The geographic dispersal of launch sites across southern Lebanon's complex terrain prevented Israeli counter-battery fire from significantly degrading Hezbollah's launch capacity during the offensive, as each firing position could execute rapid shoot-and-scoot operations before Israeli artillery or airstrikes could achieve effective response. The Zelzal 2 medium-range ballistic missile provided the precision strike capability within Hezbollah's arsenal, with these guided systems delivering 600-kilogram warheads with circular error probable measured in tens of meters rather than hundreds, enabling direct targeting of specific infrastructure nodes, military installations, and government facilities. The combination of volume saturation through Fajr 5 employment and precision strike through Zelzal 2 targeting created operational effects that neither system could achieve independently, forcing Israeli air defenses to simultaneously address mass saturation and high-value precision threats. The Iron Dome system, despite its considerable technological sophistication and proven capability in intercepting individual rockets and small salvo attacks, operates within fundamental mathematical constraints that determine its effectiveness against mass saturation scenarios. Each Iron Dome battery consists of 3 to 4 launcher units carrying 20 interceptor missiles per launcher, providing 60 to 80 intercept attempts before requiring reload operations that consume 20 to 40 minutes, depending on operational conditions and ammunition availability at forward positions. The system's radar tracking capacity can process approximately 100 simultaneous targets, but intercept engagement capacity is fundamentally limited by the number of available interceptor missiles and the geometric constraints of intercept opportunities. When Hezbollah launched sustained salvos exceeding 200 rockets per hour across 6 continuous hours, they guaranteed that Iron Dome batteries would cycle through their entire ammunition loads multiple times, creating windows of complete defensive vulnerability during reload operations. The mathematics of saturation warfare are brutally simple. 60 interceptors cannot defeat 200 incoming rockets, and no reload speed can compensate for that arithmetic deficit when salvos arrive in continuous succession. Israeli air defense architecture attempted to address the saturation problem through geographic defense prioritization, concentrating Iron Dome batteries around high-value areas like Tel Aviv, Haifa, and critical infrastructure nodes, while accepting reduced coverage for peripheral regions. This prioritization strategy succeeded in preventing even worse casualties and damage in Israel's population centers, but the sheer volume of Hezbollah's sustained barrage overwhelmed even concentrated defensive deployments. Tel Aviv's defensive umbrella, reinforced with multiple Iron Dome batteries specifically positioned to protect Israel's commercial and financial capital, faced incoming rocket volumes that exceeded intercept capacity by factors of 3 to 5 during peak barrage periods. The result was mathematically inevitable. Rockets penetrated defensive coverage and impacted across the metropolitan area, igniting fires in residential towers, destroying commercial facilities, and creating cascading infrastructure failures as electrical grids, water systems, and transportation networks sustained simultaneous damage across distributed impact sites. The operational consequences of defensive saturation extend far beyond the immediate casualties and property damage inflicted during the 6-hour barrage. The Israel Defense Forces now confront a fundamental strategic problem that has no immediate solution within existing defensive architectures and procurement timelines. Iron Dome's demonstrated vulnerability to sustained mass saturation attacks invalidates the core assumption that has underpinned Israeli security planning for the past decade, namely that technological superiority in missile defense could compensate for numerical inferiority in rock artillery exchanges with adversary forces. That assumption has been catastrophically disproven through operational reality, forcing Israeli military planners to reassess defensive strategies, offensive response options, and fundamental deterrence postures in ways that reveal uncomfortable truths about Israel's actual military position. The immediate tactical response available to Israeli forces involves counter-battery operations targeting Hezbollah launch sites, but the operational effectiveness of such responses remains severely constrained by the geographic dispersal and mobility of Hezbollah's rocket forces. Israeli artillery and air assets can certainly destroy individual launch positions after they reveal themselves through firing operations, but the time required to detect, target, and engage mobile launchers consistently exceeds the time required for those launchers to complete firing sequences and relocate to concealed positions. The result is that Israeli counter-battery fire achieves marginal degradation of Hezbollah's launch capacity rather than decisive suppression, trading expensive precision munitions and high-value sortie hours for launchers that Hezbollah can replace from reserve stockpiles. The cost-exchange ratio in this artillery duel heavily favors Hezbollah, which expends rockets costing thousands of dollars while forcing Israel to expend interceptor missiles costing $50,000 each and precision-guided munitions costing hundreds of thousands of dollars per unit. Israeli ground invasion options theoretically offer more decisive approaches to suppressing Hezbollah's rocket capabilities through occupation of launch areas in southern Lebanon. But the operational costs and strategic risks of large-scale ground operations create deterrent effects that constrain Israeli decision-making. Any ground invasion substantial enough to achieve meaningful rocket suppression requires mobilization of reserve forces, extended occupation operations in hostile territory, and acceptance of steady casualties from guerrilla resistance that Hezbollah has spent 2 decades preparing to inflict. The 2006 Lebanon War demonstrated conclusively that Hezbollah possesses both the tactical capability and strategic determination to impose severe costs on Israeli ground forces operating in southern Lebanese terrain, costs that Israeli political leadership proved unwilling to sustain despite vastly superior conventional military capabilities. The strategic calculus has not fundamentally changed. Israeli ground forces can certainly achieve tactical victories and occupy southern Lebanese territory, but the casualties required and the duration of occupation necessary to achieve lasting rocket suppression create political costs that make such operations strategically prohibitive. The paralysis facing Israeli decision-makers stems from the absence of viable response options that achieve strategic objectives without incurring unacceptable costs. Defensive responses through expanded Iron Dome deployment cannot solve the fundamental mathematics of saturation warfare when adversary rocket stockpiles number in the tens of thousands. Offensive responses through air and artillery strikes achieve marginal effects against distributed mobile launchers. Ground invasion options promise tactical success at strategic costs Israeli society has repeatedly proven unwilling to bear. This constriction of viable response options creates the operational paralysis that Hezbollah's strategic planning specifically intended to produce, forcing Israeli leadership to choose between escalation options that carry prohibitive risks and defensive postures that accept continued vulnerability. What does Washington do when its closest Middle Eastern ally faces defensive crisis that American technology cannot solve and American military power cannot directly address? The United States confronts a strategic dilemma that reveals fundamental limitations in its ability to provide security guarantees to regional partners facing adversaries who have specifically designed operational approaches to circumvent American technological advantages. The defensive saturation that overwhelmed Iron Dome tonight cannot be solved through additional American aid or technology transfers because the problem is mathematical rather than technological. No missile defense system yet developed can achieve cost-effective defense against sustained mass saturation attacks when adversary rocket stockpiles exceed defensive interceptor inventories by orders of magnitude. American strategic attention consumed by Israeli defensive crisis represents attention diverted from Ukraine, from NATO's eastern flank, from Pacific deterrence postures, creating pressure relief across every theater where adversaries face American-backed opposition. Russia observes with satisfaction as American focus fragments across simultaneous crises. China notes how American security guarantees prove inadequate when adversaries employ asymmetric approaches specifically designed to exploit mathematical limitations in American defensive technologies. Iran celebrates validation of its decades-long investment in proxy force development and rocket artillery proliferation as strategic tools for constraining Israeli freedom of action while remaining below thresholds that would trigger direct American military intervention. Israeli political leadership now faces questions that have no comfortable answers and decisions that offer no attractive options. Does Israel escalate through large-scale military operations that promise tactical success at strategic costs the Israeli public has repeatedly proven unwilling to sustain? Does Israel accept defensive vulnerability and continued rocket harassment as a permanent condition of national existence? Does Israel pursue diplomatic accommodation with adversaries from positions of demonstrated defensive weakness rather than strength? Each option carries profound implications for Israel's regional position, alliance relationships, and long-term security prospects. The fires burning across Tel Aviv tonight represent more than immediate humanitarian tragedy and economic damage. They mark the permanent end of Israeli defensive invincibility as operational reality rather than propaganda narrative. They demonstrate conclusively that technological superiority cannot overcome numerical inferiority when adversaries employ patient strategic planning and accept extended timelines for capability development. They prove that small non-state actors with sufficient determination, competent planning, and patient preparation can achieve strategic effects against vastly more powerful conventional military forces through asymmetric approaches that exploit mathematical realities rather than attempting to match technological capabilities. Hezbollah has just rewritten the rules of Middle Eastern conflict through operational success that invalidates a decade of Israeli security assumptions. The regional balance of power shifts tonight in ways that will shape strategic calculations for years to come. Israel's adversaries observe demonstrated vulnerability and assess escalation options previously considered too risky. Israel's ambivalent neighbors reassess their strategic positioning and alliance relationships in light of demonstrated Israeli defensive weakness. The entire architecture of regional security that has prevailed since the last major Arab-Israeli conflict faces fundamental restructuring as all parties adjust their strategies to account for new operational realities. What has this night permanently altered about the Middle Eastern power balance? Has Israel's technological edge proven insufficient to compensate for its geographic vulnerability and numerical inferiority when facing adversaries willing to invest in capability development over extended timelines? Can defensive technologies ever achieve cost-effective protection against adversaries willing to accumulate massive rocket stockpiles and employ saturation tactics? These questions will dominate strategic analysis for months and years to come, but the fundamental answers are already clear in the fires burning across Israeli cities tonight. If you want analysis this sharp, this deep, this willing to examine operational realities that official narratives prefer to obscure, subscribe now to ensure you never miss an update. Share this video with everyone in your network who understands that genuine strategic analysis requires confronting uncomfortable truths rather than repeating comfortable propaganda. Leave your assessment in the comments. Has Hezbollah's demonstration of defensive saturation capabilities permanently altered the regional military balance, or will Israeli responses restore deterrence and defensive effectiveness? Your engagement keeps this analysis independent, sharp, and focused on operational reality rather than political preference. The world watches Tel Aviv burn tonight and draws conclusions about the changing nature of Middle Eastern power. Some will see validation of resistance strategies and asymmetric warfare approaches. Others will see temporary tactical success that Israeli responses will ultimately overcome. But everyone sees the same fundamental reality. The defensive technologies that were supposed to render rocket artillery obsolete have proven vulnerable to sustained mass saturation, and that vulnerability creates strategic opportunities that will shape regional conflict for years to come. Subscribe to this channel because in a world this dangerous, analysis this sharp is not optional, it is necessary. Stay sharp, stay ahead, and never stop asking the questions that matter.